There's a quiet moment in everyone's life when they realize something uncomfortable, that knowing what to do and actually doing it are two completely different worlds. You can read every book, watch every motivational video, listen to every success story, and still find yourself standing in the same place, waiting for the right moment to begin. But here's the truth. There is no right moment. There is only now, this exact breath, this exact heartbeat, this fleeting opportunity to move forward. People often think change begins with inspiration, but inspiration is a fragile spark. It burns brightly for a moment and fades. Real transformation begins when you act, even when the fire inside you feels like embers. When you stop waiting to feel ready and decide that you already are. Think about how many dreams die, not because they're impossible, but because someone hesitated. How many people say, one day I'll start my business, or one day I'll write that book, or one day I'll get in shape, and then years later, they're still saying one day. One day slowly turns into never, and never has a quiet sound. It's the sound of untapped potential fading into the background. But you don't have to live like that. You have a choice, not a comfortable one, but a real one. You can choose to move, even when your body resists. You can choose to start, even when your mind doubts. You can choose to act, even when no one believes in you yet. Because the truth is, belief doesn't precede action, it follows it. Confidence is something you earn through effort, not something you're born with. When you take that first uncomfortable step, even a small one, something changes inside you. You prove to yourself that you're capable. And once that seed of proof is planted, it begins to grow. The first day you push through resistance is the hardest. But every time you do it again, you train your brain to see discomfort, not as a threat, but as a signal of growth. Let's be honest, most people live their entire lives negotiating with fear. They spend more time analyzing their hesitation than actually living. But action is the great equalizer. It silences overthinking, it dissolves doubt, it transforms confusion into clarity. You don't think your way into confidence, you act your way into it. Action is momentum, and momentum doesn't come from bursts of motivation, it comes from consistency. Every small repeated action compounds into massive change over time. A single push-up means nothing, but 365 of them, one a day, that's transformation. One phone call a day might not change your career tomorrow, but 300 calls later, your entire life looks different. You see, life rewards momentum, not hesitation. The moment you move, doors begin to open, not because the world suddenly changes, but because you begin to see it differently. Opportunities were always there. You just couldn't see them through the fog of inaction. So many people wait for certainty. They want guarantees before they act. But action is the guarantee. It's the proof of faith in yourself. When you step forward without knowing every answer, you tell the universe, I'm serious about this. And the universe responds not with applause, but with tests. It will challenge you to see if you truly mean it. The first few days will be hard. The first few failures will sting. But every challenge you overcome sharpens your resilience. Here's something most people never realize. It's not discipline that's hard. It's the start that's hard. The act of moving from stillness to momentum is what drains you. Once you start, the mind adapts. Once you act, your emotions follow. So stop waiting for the right emotion to begin. Begin, and the right emotion will catch up. Ask yourself this, what have you been putting off, because it feels uncomfortable? What dream have you delayed, because you're scared of failing? That fear you feel isn't a sign to stop, it's a compass pointing you toward growth. Fear exists in the exact place your potential lives. It's not your enemy, it's your signal. If you truly want to transform your life, stop negotiating with your goals. Stop making promises you don't keep to yourself. Every time you say, I'll start tomorrow, you're teaching your subconscious that your words mean nothing. But every time you act on what you say, even in small ways, you rebuild that trust. Self-trust is the foundation of unstoppable confidence. No one becomes great through comfort. Every person who has built something meaningful has had to face their own resistance. They've had moments of doubt, exhaustion, fear, but they moved anyway, because they understood one fundamental truth: motion creates emotion, not the other way around. So today, decide that you're done waiting. Decide that you'll move before you feel ready. Because the truth is, you'll never truly feel ready. There's always something you'll lack: time, money, support, or clarity. But once you begin, those things start finding you. Action attracts resources. Stillness repels them. The first few steps won't be perfect. You'll stumble. You'll question yourself. But every imperfect step forward beats perfect ideas that never leave your head. There's power in momentum, and once you taste it, you'll never go back. This is where transformation begins, not in the grand vision, but in the tiny, often invisible acts of courage that you choose every day. Waking up early when your body wants to sleep. Finishing that project when you'd rather scroll your phone. Making the call, sending the email, showing up again and again, even when it's boring, even when no one's watching. That's where real change is built. You don't need to be extraordinary to take action. You become extraordinary because you take action. Greatness is not inborn, it's accumulated, one uncomfortable decision at a time. So the next time you catch yourself waiting for motivation, remember this: motivation is a lie that disguises fear. You don't need to feel good to move. You need to move to feel good. You don't need to believe to begin. You begin, and then belief grows. This is your moment. You've waited long enough. You don't need another plan, another podcast, or another video telling you what to do. You already know. You've known for a long time. What you need now is not more information, it's movement. Take the first step, however small. Write the message, make the call, go for the run, record the video, send the email, start the business. Don't let another day pass by in hesitation, because the truth is, every day you wait is a day you'll never get back. Action doesn't guarantee success, but inaction guarantees regret. Most people think success is a single grand moment, that one decision that changes everything. But success is rarely born from big, cinematic moments. It's built in quiet mornings when no one's watching, in those small acts of persistence when quitting would have been easier. Success is not a moment of glory. It's a pattern of decisions, repeated long enough until discipline becomes your nature. If you look closely at the lives of people who have achieved remarkable things, you'll notice a simple pattern: they act first, and they think later. Not recklessly, but decisively. They understand that clarity is not something you wait for, it's something you create through movement. They don't waste their time trying to plan every possible outcome. They trust that as long as they're moving, they'll adjust and learn along the way. There's an invisible line between those who dream and those who do, and that line is crossed not with motivation, but with movement. The dreamers stay in their heads, the doers step into the storm. The dreamers imagine, the doers experiment. The dreamers say, one day. The doers say, day one. You have to understand something powerful about human psychology. The brain is designed to protect, not to progress. It's programmed for survival, not success. It will always resist uncertainty, always prefer comfort, always magnify fear. That's why change feels so heavy. When you try to step into something new, your brain interprets it as danger. It's not that you're lazy or unmotivated. Your brain is simply wired to avoid discomfort. But here's the paradox: every meaningful achievement lives beyond discomfort. Every breakthrough requires you to walk through resistance. The mind that seeks safety can never reach mastery. Growth demands risk, and risk demands courage, and courage doesn't mean the absence of fear. It means acting while fear whispers in your ear that you shouldn't. There will never be a day when you wake up and all the fear disappears. There will never be a time when you feel perfectly ready. Readiness is an illusion. The only real readiness you'll ever feel is the one that follows action, because every step forward rewires your brain to handle uncertainty a little better. Think about a time you avoided something, maybe a difficult conversation, a new project, or a challenge that scared you. How did it feel while you avoided it? Heavy, right? You carried it everywhere in your mind, but the moment you finally faced it, made the call, sent the message, took the step, the fear didn't vanish because you were ready. It vanished because you acted. Action dissolves anxiety. It's movement that melts fear, not overthinking. Every time you push yourself to act despite fear, you're training your mind to obey your goals instead of your emotions. That's real power. When you can act regardless of how you feel, you become unstoppable. The world can't control someone who no longer waits for the right mood to move. Let's face it, we've all had moments where we promised ourselves we'd start tomorrow. We set goals at night that evaporate with the sunrise. We dream of change but never follow through. It's not that we don't want it badly enough, it's that we've conditioned ourselves to believe that emotion must come before action. But what if you reversed it? What if, instead of waiting to feel ready, you acted and trusted that readiness would follow? Here's a secret that most people never discover. Action generates emotion. When you start moving, your brain releases energy. Momentum creates motivation. Think about the last time you didn't want to exercise, but forced yourself to start. 15 minutes in, you felt better, right? That's because action changed your state. Motion awakens motivation. When you understand this, you stop living as a prisoner of your emotions. You begin to lead your life intentionally. You stop negotiating with your excuses. You stop giving power to feelings that don't serve your future. Imagine your life 5 years from now. If you simply took one small uncomfortable action every day, just one, you'd be a completely different person, not because of one massive breakthrough, but because of 1,000 small acts of courage. Consistency compounds. One small action might not change your world today, but it creates a ripple, and that ripple, repeated daily, becomes a wave. Here's something powerful. Action not only builds momentum, it builds identity. Every time you take action, you're casting a vote for the kind of person you want to be. When you show up for your goals, you're proving to yourself that you're someone who follows through. You're telling your subconscious, I can trust me. And that trust, that quiet inner confidence, is priceless. It's the foundation of self-belief, because when you trust yourself, you no longer depend on external validation. You stop waiting for people to tell you it's possible. You stop needing approval to begin. You stop fearing judgment because you know who you are becoming. Every moment you delay action, you're reinforcing self-doubt. You're teaching your brain that your comfort matters more than your commitment. But every time you act, even in the smallest ways, you're building a new neural pathway that associates action with safety, not fear. And once your brain learns that movement is safe, resistance weakens. You don't need more motivation. You need to break the habit of hesitation. Hesitation is the thief of momentum. It's the split-second pause between thought and movement that kills dreams. When your mind says, I should do this, you have about 5 seconds before fear convinces you not to. That's why acting fast matters. The faster you act, the less power your fear has to intervene. So here's a practical truth. Don't wait to feel courageous. Act first, and courage will meet you on the way. Don't wait to feel confident. Start, and confidence will catch up. Don't wait to have all the answers. Move, and the answers will reveal themselves through the process. There's beauty in imperfect action, because perfection is a disguise for fear. It's your ego trying to protect you from failure. But failure is not the enemy. Stagnation is. Failure is feedback, the world's most honest teacher. Every mistake refines your approach. Every setback prepares you for the next level. So take a breath. Look at your life right now. There's something you've been postponing, that message you need to send, that goal you keep planning but never starting, that idea you keep hiding behind someday. Let this be the moment you stop postponing. Remember, you're not waiting for life to give you permission. You're giving yourself permission. You don't need a sign. You don't need validation. You don't need perfect timing, you just need movement, because action, even imperfect, messy, uncertain action, beats perfection that never begins. The hardest part of any journey is not the miles ahead, it's taking the first step. Once you begin, you change. Once you start, the universe responds. People show up, ideas align, opportunities appear. But none of that happens until you start moving. This is how you force yourself to take action, not by waiting for motivation, but by recognizing that movement itself is the source of it. You push through hesitation, not because it's easy, but because your future demands it. And with every action you take, no matter how small, you're building something invisible: momentum, confidence, belief. You're crafting the version of yourself who no longer waits but acts. This is your turning point. The moment you stop waiting for the perfect time and start creating it, because the truth is, action transforms everything. The difference between people who succeed and those who don't often comes down to one simple truth. Some people do the uncomfortable things, and others don't. That's it. It's not luck, it's not fate, it's not talent. It's simply about facing discomfort until it becomes familiar. Every time you step into something that scares you, you shrink fear's power over you. But every time you retreat, you feed it, and it grows. Action is not just about movement, it's about emotional rewiring. You are teaching your brain that pain, discomfort, and uncertainty are not threats. They're signals that you're expanding your limits. Most people misinterpret these feelings. They feel resistance and assume it's a warning to stop. In reality, resistance is a sign you're on the right path. It's proof that you're breaking old patterns that once kept you small. The truth is, growth always disguises itself as fear. You can't have one without the other. The greater your goals, the greater your resistance will feel. The universe doesn't test you because it's cruel. It tests you to see if you're serious, to filter out the wishers from the doers. Every time you push through fear and take action, you send a message to yourself. I'm not defined by how I feel. I'm defined by what I do. This simple mindset shift is where freedom begins. Because if you can learn to act regardless of fear, you can do anything. It's important to understand that motivation will always fluctuate. You will not wake up every day feeling ready to conquer the world. Some days you'll feel tired, uninspired, even hopeless. But these are the days that define your future. Anyone can move when they're excited. True power lies in moving when you're not. The people who build extraordinary lives are not superhuman. They just refuse to let temporary emotions dictate permanent outcomes. They wake up tired and show up anyway. They face rejection and keep going. They fail and try again. They've learned that emotions are weather, temporary, fleeting, unreliable. But action is structure. It's the anchor you plant in the ground that keeps you steady through the emotional storms. When you act even when you don't feel like it, you're mastering emotional discipline. You're becoming someone who leads yourself, not someone who waits to be led by circumstances. That's what real maturity looks like. Self-leadership. Let's talk about something few people ever master: momentum. Momentum is the invisible energy that builds when you consistently take action. It's like pushing a heavy rock. The first few pushes are the hardest, but once it starts rolling, it becomes unstoppable. Most people quit right before momentum kicks in. They underestimate how close they are to a breakthrough simply because the results haven't appeared yet. But if you could see what's happening beneath the surface, the habits being built, the neural patterns being rewired, the unseen opportunities aligning, you'd never stop. Action always compounds before it rewards. You don't see the payoff right away, but it's coming. It always comes to those who stay consistent long enough. Consistency is the quiet superpower of those who succeed. It's not glamorous, it's not exciting, and it often feels boring. But it's what separates those who talk about success from those who live it. Consistency doesn't mean perfection. It means you show up again and again no matter what. Even when you fail, you get up. Even when you feel lost, you take the next step. You can't control outcomes, but you can control effort. You can't guarantee results, but you can guarantee discipline. And that's all you ever need. Because over time, effort compounds into excellence. If you've ever felt stuck, here's something to reflect on. You don't lack motivation, you lack momentum. The hardest part is always starting. Once you start, the mind catches up. The energy follows, you just need to break the initial inertia. So, start where you are. Don't wait for perfect conditions, they don't exist. Don't wait until you have everything figured out. No one ever does. Start with what you have, with what you know, and let life meet you halfway. The universe rewards motion, not intention. It's when you start walking that new paths appear. It's when you start building that new doors open. But as long as you stay still, everything remains the same. You don't need to see the whole staircase. You just need to take the first step. Every master began as a beginner who took imperfect action. Every leader once stood where you are, uncertain but willing. The only difference between them and everyone else is that they didn't wait to feel ready. Action transforms identity. When you do what you say you'll do, even in small ways, you begin to see yourself differently. You start to think, maybe I am capable, maybe I can handle this. And that shift in identity changes everything. Because when your self-image evolves, your behavior follows. But the reverse is also true. Every time you break a promise to yourself, you erode trust. You tell your subconscious that your words don't matter. And once your mind stops believing you, your confidence collapses. That's why keeping small promises matters. Wake up when you said you would. Finish what you started. Push yourself just a little more than you planned. These small victories build self-respect, and self-respect builds unstoppable confidence. Taking action is not just about achievement, it's about alignment. It's about becoming the person you're meant to be through movement. The longer you wait, the more disconnected you become from your purpose. Here's a thought: your purpose is not discovered in stillness, it's revealed through motion. You can't think your way into clarity. You can only act your way into it. Every step teaches you something new. Every mistake gives you direction. Every setback redirects you towards something better. It's natural to fear failure, but failure is not the opposite of success. It's the process of success. Every failure is feedback. Every misstep teaches you what doesn't work so you can find what does. The people who succeed the fastest are those who fail the most, because they're the ones trying the most. If you reframe failure as information, it stops being terrifying. It becomes a teacher. And when failure becomes your teacher, fear loses its hold on you. Remember this: action turns fear into data. It transforms what if into now I know. So stop analyzing from the sidelines. Life doesn't reward spectators. It rewards participants. Every second you spend overthinking is a second you could spend creating. Thinking has its place, but it's action that moves the needle. There will always be uncertainty. There will always be risk. But the greatest risk is in doing nothing. Because the cost of inaction is invisible. It's the opportunities you never see, the skills you never build, the confidence you never develop. It's the silent erosion of potential. You don't have to do everything today. Just start something. One step, one decision, one small move in the direction of your goals. Because that's how greatness begins. Quietly, humbly, but decisively. Force yourself to take action, not because it's easy, but because your dreams deserve it. Because you deserve to see what's possible when you stop holding back. Because the world doesn't change when you plan. It changes when you move. Take a breath. Feel the fear. Then take the step anyway. You see, when it comes to taking action, it's not about waiting for the perfect moment, because the truth is, there is no perfect moment. Every successful person you admire has had to start from a place of uncertainty, discomfort, or fear. They didn't know what would happen next, but they acted anyway. They understood that clarity comes from movement, not from endless thought. You can spend days, weeks, even years waiting for the right time, but deep down you already know now is the only time you have. Every second you hesitate is a second lost. Every excuse you entertain is a small victory for fear. And fear is clever. It convinces you that you're being rational, that you're waiting for the stars to align, but it's lying to you. The moment you start acting, even in small steps, fear begins to lose its grip. The psychology of taking action is fascinating. Your brain craves safety, comfort, and predictability. It's wired to protect you from pain and risk. That's why you hesitate when facing something uncertain. It's not weakness, it's biology. But growth exists in the very space your comfort zone avoids. The only way to reprogram that instinct is through exposure, repeated, consistent, deliberate exposure to action. At first, your brain resists. It tells you, wait until you're ready. But readiness is a myth. Action is what creates readiness. Think about it. When you first started walking, you didn't wait until you mastered balance. You fell, you stumbled, and then you learned. That same principle applies to every area of your life: business, relationships, health, spirituality. You learn by doing. You improve by moving. You grow by falling forward. There's something powerful about motion. It generates momentum, and momentum changes everything. The hardest part of any journey is the beginning, the push from stillness into motion. But once you move, once you take that first step, the next one becomes easier. It's like rolling a heavy rock. The first push takes effort, but after that the rock begins to roll with its own weight. That's momentum. You want to build a business? Start small. Send one email, make one call, research one opportunity. You want to write a book? Don't plan it endlessly, just write one page today. You want to change your life? Start with one habit. One small action, repeated consistently, will rewrite your identity faster than any motivational talk. You see, discipline isn't about punishment or pressure. It's about creating structure for your growth. It's the bridge between intention and reality. When you decide to act, even when you don't feel like it, you're training your mind to follow your goals instead of your moods. That's emotional mastery. That's what separates dreamers from doers. The people who achieve extraordinary things aren't necessarily more talented, they're more consistent. They've built a habit of showing up. They've learned that motivation is unreliable, but systems are dependable, so they build systems that keep them moving forward, even when motivation fades. They automate progress through routine, through discipline, through habit, and when they fail, and they do, they don't crumble. Because they understand failure isn't the opposite of success, it's part of it. Every setback teaches resilience. Every mistake carries a lesson. The key is not to let a momentary loss define your identity. You're not a failure because you failed. You fail only when you stop trying. Taking action also means learning to silence the inner critic, the voice that tells you you're not good enough, not ready, not capable. That voice is built from past fears, past pain, and old beliefs that no longer serve you. Every time you ignore that voice and take a small step forward, you weaken its influence. You begin to create a new voice, one that says, I can do this, I am learning, I am growing. But here's a truth few people talk about: consistency is not exciting, it's repetitive, sometimes boring, and often invisible. The world claps for results, not the quiet grind behind them. But you must fall in love with the process, not just the outcome, because it's in the process, those early mornings, those lonely nights, those uncertain hours, that character is forged. Every great entrepreneur, artist, athlete, or thinker you admire has one thing in common: they acted long before they saw results. They trusted the process before it made sense. They planted seeds in the dark, not knowing when or if they would grow, and eventually, through patience and persistence, those seeds bloomed. That's how success works: quiet beginnings, noisy results. And let's talk about patience, because it's a critical part of action. Many people quit too early, not because they're incapable, but because they expected instant rewards. But success is rarely instant. You're not failing because it's taking time. You're building something that lasts. True transformation, whether in business, mindset, or life, requires endurance. You can't microwave greatness. You must cultivate it. Every day you show up, you're strengthening your foundation. You're telling life, I'm serious about this, and life responds to that energy. The doors you've been waiting to open start unlocking, not because luck suddenly appeared, but because your consistent action aligned with opportunity. Luck is simply preparation meeting timing. You must also understand the energy of action. When you move, the universe moves with you. People start to notice, resources appear, paths become visible that you couldn't see while standing still. The fog only lifts when you walk through it. You cannot wait for perfect visibility. You move, and clarity follows. And yes, there will be days you feel tired, discouraged, or lost. Those days are part of the journey. Rest if you must, but don't retreat. Adjust your pace, but don't abandon your mission. You owe it to yourself to see what happens if you don't give up. Remember, action doesn't require confidence. Confidence is the result of action. You act first, and belief follows. The more you do, the more capable you feel. The more capable you feel, the more you do. It's a powerful cycle, but it begins with that one decision to move, even when you don't feel ready. So here's your challenge. Take one bold step today, not tomorrow, not next week, today. Send that email, apply for that opportunity, start that project, begin that conversation. Your future self is waiting, cheering for you from the other side of fear. Because the only real failure is inaction. The only wasted day is the one where you let fear stop you. The moment you act, even in the smallest way, you reclaim your power. And when you stack those small victories, day after day, you become unstoppable. The world doesn't reward those who think about doing, it rewards those who do. And you are one decision away from a completely different life. Take that step, move forward, and never stop. There's a quiet moment before every decision, a stillness that feels like standing at the edge of something vast. It's that space where hesitation lives, where your mind argues between safety and growth. Most people stay there. They linger in that space for months, even years, replaying possibilities, imagining outcomes, analyzing every detail until time passes them by. But the ones who move, the ones who step forward despite uncertainty, those are the ones who shape their destinies. Taking action is more than movement. It's courage, translated into motion. It's saying, I may not have everything figured out, but I trust myself enough to begin. And in that single act of beginning, something shifts inside you. It's as if the universe whispers, finally, because it has been waiting, not to hand you everything you want, but to respond to your willingness to move. You must understand that the bridge between where you are and where you want to be is not made of thoughts or dreams. It's built from the choices you make when no one is watching, the small, consistent actions you repeat, even when no one applauds. Every time you choose action over hesitation, you reinforce the muscle of self-trust. The problem for most people isn't knowledge. It's paralysis. We know what to do, but we hesitate because of fear. Fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of starting small. But here's the truth. Fear will always exist in the presence of growth. It's a companion, not an enemy. It's a signal that you're stretching beyond comfort. And when you learn to walk with fear instead of fighting it, you unlock extraordinary potential. Embrace the discomfort of beginning. It's not punishment. It's preparation. Every master was once a beginner. Every expert once stumbled through the first step. What separates them from everyone else is that they didn't stop. They didn't let the awkwardness of the early stage convince them they were unworthy. They kept showing up, day after day, until what once felt unnatural became effortless. There's a kind of peace that comes with consistent action, a calm confidence that grows as you prove to yourself that you can be relied upon. You begin to trust your own discipline. You stop waiting for motivation to strike, because you've learned that action itself generates motivation. You no longer ask, "How do I feel about doing this?" You simply do it, and in doing it, you feel better. That's the secret of unstoppable people. They don't waste energy negotiating with their emotions. They've learned that feelings are temporary, but purpose is constant. So when they feel resistance, they don't interpret it as a stop sign. They see it as a signal that growth is near. They lean in, not away. The truth is, you don't need to be perfect to begin. You just need to be present. Perfection is often a disguise for fear. It's the illusion that you're waiting to improve something that can only be improved through doing. Don't wait to be ready. Ready is a feeling that only comes after you've already started. Every action you take, no matter how small, creates momentum. And momentum is the most powerful force in personal transformation. Think of it like pushing a train. It's heavy, it resists, it barely moves at first. But the more you push, the easier it gets. Eventually, it starts to roll with its own weight. The same applies to your habits, your discipline, your focus. Once you start moving, it becomes harder to stop than to continue. There's something sacred about motion. When you act, you awaken something spiritual inside you, a force that says, "I am alive, I am capable, and I refuse to stay stuck." That force, once awakened, changes everything. It shifts how you see the world, how you carry yourself, and how others perceive you. People are drawn to those who move, because movement radiates life. Stillness born from fear attracts decay, but movement, even imperfect movement, attracts opportunity. You've probably noticed that when you begin something, no matter how small, doors start opening that you didn't even know existed. That's not coincidence, it's alignment. Life responds to energy, and energy flows where direction exists. Now let's speak about one of the most misunderstood aspects of action: failure. People treat failure as an endpoint, when in truth, it's a teacher. Failure gives you information, not judgment. It shows you what doesn't work so you can discover what does. Every failure refines your focus. Every misstep removes confusion. If you fail enough, you become wise, not because you've avoided mistakes, but because you've embraced them. To force yourself to take action, you must detach from the idea of perfect outcomes. Focus instead on perfect effort, on showing up wholeheartedly. Because results don't come to those who think, they come to those who act. Action creates feedback, and feedback creates growth. But you can't grow from theory, you grow from experience. The people who achieve mastery aren't the ones who started with certainty, they're the ones who started with curiosity. They asked, "What if I tried?" instead of "What if I fail?" And because they tried, they discovered. They built resilience, confidence, and wisdom. You can do the same. Stop asking yourself, "What if it doesn't work?" and start asking, "What if it does?" Because what if the thing you've been avoiding is the very thing that could change everything for you? What if the discomfort you've been running from is the birthplace of your next breakthrough? Every dream demands a price: discipline, patience, persistence, and the currency is action. You cannot think your way into transformation, you must act your way there. You must make decisions that align with the person you want to become, not the one you're trying to outgrow. It begins with the smallest step: the call you've been putting off, the email you've avoided, the project you've delayed, because that one act of movement tells your mind, "We are doing this." It shifts you from wishful thinking to active becoming. And once you start, the universe takes notice. Momentum builds, confidence grows, and soon, what once seemed impossible begins to feel inevitable. Because the truth is, your destiny is not written in the stars, it's written in your habits, in your actions, in your willingness to move, even when you don't have all the answers. So don't wait for motivation, don't wait for permission, don't wait for permission, don't wait for the perfect moment. You already have what you need: time, breath, and choice. Choose movement, choose progress, choose life. Because the moment you decide to act, the world begins to bend in your favor. There's a moment when something within you changes, when the frustration of staying the same becomes heavier than the fear of change. That's the turning point. It's the silent declaration that says, enough. I refuse to live on autopilot. That decision, though invisible, is powerful beyond measure. Because once your mind decides to move, your body follows. Taking action isn't just about external progress, it's about inner transformation. Every time you act, you're rewriting your identity. You're no longer someone who wants to change, you're someone who is changing. And that's what separates dreamers from doers. Dreamers wait for signs. Doers create them. Think about how often you've convinced yourself that you're preparing when in truth, you're procrastinating. Preparation feels productive, but often it's fear disguised as control. You tell yourself you need just a little more time, more information, more confidence. But the truth is, the gap between knowing and doing is where most dreams die. The real growth happens when you cross that gap, when you move from someday to today. You see, the mind loves to live in theory because theory feels safe. You can plan endlessly, imagine the outcomes, visualize perfection, but the real world demands engagement, and when you engage with reality, you gain power. Because reality responds to action, not intention. That's why small, consistent steps are the key. Massive goals overwhelm the mind, but small steps bypass resistance. They're less intimidating. And once you start, you create motion. Action compounds. One step today makes the next one easier tomorrow. You don't climb a mountain in a leap. You take it one steady step at a time, and before you realize it, you're above the clouds. Here's something few understand. The hardest part isn't the work itself, it's breaking the inertia. The weight of not starting grows heavier every day you delay. But the instant you begin, that weight starts to lift. Because the moment you act, your brain releases dopamine, the chemical of reward and momentum. It tells you keep going. That's why action fuels motivation, not the other way around. You don't wait to feel good to act, you act to feel good. There's a profound truth in movement. Your body leads, your emotions follow. Think of times when you forced yourself to go for a walk, hit the gym, or start a project even when you didn't feel like it. 10 minutes in, you felt better. Not because the task changed, but because your internal state shifted through motion. The same applies to every area of life. Don't wait for inspiration to show up at your door, summon it through movement. Because every action you take tells your subconscious that you are someone who does what needs to be done. And soon that belief becomes your identity. Identity shapes destiny. You don't act consistently with who you wish to be. You act consistently with who you believe you are. So when you say, I'm lazy, or I'm inconsistent, your brain aligns your behavior with that story. To change your life, you must change your narrative. Start speaking to yourself like someone in motion. Tell yourself, I'm disciplined, I take action, I finish what I start. And then, prove yourself right. Because identity is not discovered, it's built. One choice at a time. Every disciplined act, every small win, every time you keep a promise to yourself, you're carving a new self-image. And that self-image is what sustains you when motivation fades. Let's talk about discomfort. Most people run from it. They interpret discomfort as a sign to stop. But discomfort is the birthplace of all progress. Growth is uncomfortable because you're moving beyond familiarity. You're stretching the limits of who you were to become who you're meant to be. Imagine a muscle growing. It tears before it strengthens. The same principle applies to your life. You can't grow without resistance. Every challenge, every struggle, every failure is the gym where your resilience is built. The pain you feel is not a barrier, it's proof that you're evolving. So don't fear discomfort, pursue it. Seek it deliberately, because on the other side of it lies mastery. Every uncomfortable decision you make expands your capacity to handle more. The goal isn't to make life easier, it's to make yourself stronger. Now let's look at accountability, one of the greatest accelerators of action. You can make promises to yourself all day, but when you make commitments that others are aware of, your likelihood of following through multiplies. not because you need external validation, but because accountability creates structure. It builds pressure, and pressure, when channeled, creates diamonds. Tell someone your goal, make it real, let them hold you to it. When you know someone is watching, you rise to meet your own potential. But here's the deeper truth. Self-accountability is the highest form of maturity. It's when you no longer need someone else to check on you, because you've learned to check yourself. It's when your word becomes law in your own life. The day you can rely on yourself fully is the day you unlock peace, because discipline becomes freedom when it's not forced, when it flows naturally from self-respect. If you truly respect yourself, you won't lie to yourself. You won't keep breaking promises that matter. You'll understand that every time you say tomorrow, but do nothing today, you weaken your self-trust. And when self-trust erodes, so does confidence. Rebuilding self-trust starts with one act of follow-through. It could be as simple as waking up when you said you would, or finishing a task you've been delaying. Each completion tells your subconscious, I can depend on me. That's how confidence is born, not through affirmations but through evidence. Confidence is not shouting, it's quiet certainty. It's knowing you'll figure things out because you always do. It's the calm that replaces doubt when action becomes habit. The irony is that the more you act, the less you fear, because fear feeds on inaction. The moment you move, it starts to lose its power. Every time you face it, it shrinks. Eventually, what once terrified you becomes routine. And that's the beauty of consistent action. It transforms fear into familiarity. What once looked impossible becomes part of your everyday rhythm. That's when you realize success was never about luck. It was never about waiting for a breakthrough moment. It was about doing the work, over and over, long after the excitement faded. You won't always feel like it. You'll have days where your mind rebels and your body resists. But those are the days that matter most, because when you act despite resistance, you strengthen the muscle of will. There's a deep satisfaction in pushing through when it's hardest. You end the day knowing that you didn't give in to weakness, and that quiet pride builds you from the inside out. Because ultimately, taking action is not about achieving something external, it's about who you become in the process. Someone unstoppable, resilient, and grounded in purpose. So whenever you hesitate, remind yourself there is power in this moment. You don't need to see the entire path, just take one step. You don't need to know how it all ends. Just begin. Momentum will meet you, clarity will find you, and soon you'll look back and realize you've built a life, not by waiting for the right feeling, but by creating it through consistent, deliberate action. That is how you force yourself to take action, not by force, but by faith in your own ability to keep moving forward. There comes a point in every person's life when you must stop waiting and start walking. Waiting for confidence, waiting for clarity, waiting for the perfect conditions. It's all an illusion, a gentle lie. Your mind tells to keep you safe, but safety is rarely the birthplace of greatness. Safety breeds stagnation. Growth happens only when you step into the unknown and say, even if I don't know how, I'll figure it out on the way. Most people never take that step because they believe fear is a stop sign. But fear is actually a green light. It means you're headed towards something that matters. It's your mind's way of alerting you that you're standing at the edge of possibility. And those who learn to move despite fear, to use it as fuel rather than resistance, are the ones who achieve what others only talk about. Fear and courage are not opposites. They coexist. Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's the decision that something else matters more. Every time you act in the presence of fear, you reclaim power over your life. And with every step, your confidence grows not because the fear is gone, but because you've proven you can act in spite of it. Think of a time you did something you were terrified of. Maybe a presentation, a hard conversation, a leap toward a dream. Beforehand, your heart raced, your mind spiraled. But afterward, relief washed over you, and you realized something powerful. It wasn't as bad as you imagined. That's the secret truth about fear. It magnifies everything before it happens and vanishes once you move through it. Your greatest opportunities will often appear wearing the mask of fear. That's why learning to recognize fear as a signal to act, rather than retreat, is one of the greatest emotional skills you can develop. Each time you push through it, you build emotional resilience, and emotional resilience is the foundation of unstoppable action. When you strengthen your emotional resilience, you stop reacting impulsively to discomfort. You no longer let anxiety, doubt, or fatigue dictate your behavior. Instead, you acknowledge them and move forward anyway. That's emotional mastery, the ability to feel deeply and still act intentionally. And it starts with awareness. Awareness is your greatest weapon in the battle between comfort and progress. When you become aware of your patterns, the excuses you repeat, the fears that paralyze you, you gain power over them. Because awareness precedes control, you cannot change what you refuse to see. The truth is, many people are not lazy, they're just emotionally overwhelmed. They carry unspoken stress, internal chaos, and hidden fears that drain their drive. That's why it's not enough to tell yourself, just do it. You must first understand what's blocking you. Sometimes it's fear of judgment, sometimes it's fear of failure, and sometimes it's fear of success, the quiet anxiety of stepping into a version of yourself you've never met before. Facing that fear requires compassion, not softness, but self-understanding. You can't bully yourself into progress. You must lead yourself with clarity. You must remind yourself that fear doesn't mean stop, it means pay attention. It's an invitation to grow. Start observing how you talk to yourself when you're hesitant. Do you say, "I'll never be able to do this"? Or do you say, "This feels hard, but I can take the first step"? Because your inner language determines your outer action. Every word you say to yourself plants a seed of either courage or doubt. Choose your words wisely, because they become the script your life follows. The people who consistently take action are not the ones who never doubt themselves. They are the ones who choose better words in the face of doubt. They say, "I'll figure it out." They say, "I'll learn along the way." They reframe obstacles as lessons and setbacks as feedback. That's the essence of a growth mindset, seeing every experience as data, not drama. You're not failing, you're collecting information about what works. That small mental shift transforms how you approach everything. Suddenly mistakes lose their sting, because they're no longer proof that you're not good enough, they're proof that you're improving. Once you stop attaching your worth to outcomes, you gain freedom. You stop performing for validation and start creating from authenticity. You stop fearing the opinions of others because you understand that your value doesn't rise or fall with their approval. That kind of confidence, the kind born from consistent action and emotional maturity, is unshakable. It doesn't shout, it doesn't need to prove itself. It simply moves forward, grounded and intentional. And this is where momentum turns into transformation. When you've acted long enough, despite fear and doubt, you enter a flow state where taking action becomes your nature. You no longer wait for perfect conditions, you create them. You become someone who doesn't just set goals, you embody progress. But don't misunderstand this process. You will still have off days. You will still feel tired, uninspired, and even frustrated. That's normal. The difference now is that you won't let those feelings decide your actions. You'll understand that feelings are weather, they pass, and beneath the weather, the mountain remains unmoved. That mountain is you, steady, grounded, consistent. When you begin to act from that level of groundedness, your results start to multiply. Because you're no longer chasing motivation, you're operating from integrity. Every action aligns with who you've chosen to become. You start to build what I call action identity. It's when you no longer need to talk yourself into taking action, you just do because it's who you are now. That's the ultimate goal, to make action your default. To build systems, routines, and mental frameworks that carry you forward even on days when your energy is low. Successful people don't rely on motivation, they rely on systems that make motivation irrelevant. So how do you build those systems? Start small. Identify the areas of your life where hesitation shows up most, whether it's your work, health, relationships, or goals. Then create frictionless habits around them. If you struggle to work out, put your clothes out the night before. If you procrastinate on writing, open your document and type a single sentence. The smallest step dismantles the biggest resistance. The point is to lower the barrier between intention and action. Because once the first move is made, momentum takes over. Remember, action doesn't need to be grand, it just needs to be consistent. You're not trying to do everything, you're trying to begin something. Each small act compounds into something monumental. It's the principle of accumulation. Tiny, repeated actions build unstoppable momentum over time. The person who takes one small step daily will always outperform the one who takes a massive leap once and quits. It's not about intensity, it's about consistency. The river carves the canyon, not because of force, but because of persistence. So when you doubt yourself, when you feel like your small actions don't matter, remind yourself of this: small steps taken consistently outpace massive intentions left undone. Progress is not about how fast you move, it's about how long you can keep moving. And the more you move, the more life begins to respond to you differently. You attract opportunities not because you're lucky, but because your energy shifts. You start to meet people who are aligned with your progress. You find resources you didn't even know existed. The universe rewards movement. Inaction closes doors, action opens them. Every time you choose to move, even just a little, you tell life, I'm ready. And life in return meets you halfway. So keep moving, keep stepping, keep becoming. Because your next breakthrough won't come from waiting, it will come from acting on what you already know. And that's how you force yourself to take action, not through pressure, not through panic, but through the quiet, unwavering belief that movement, any movement, will always take you somewhere better than standing still. There's a truth most people ignore because it's uncomfortable. But the ones who embrace it, they rise above average and achieve extraordinary things. The truth is this: success will never feel comfortable, growth will never feel safe, and action will never feel easy. You must learn to move even when you don't feel ready, even when your emotions are screaming for comfort, even when your mind crafts the perfect excuse to delay. This is where mental toughness is born, not in moments of glory or when you're full of energy, but in the quiet, unseen hours where you choose discipline over desire. You choose progress over procrastination. You choose to act when no one is watching. Imagine two versions of you: one who waits for inspiration to act, and one who acts to create inspiration. One drifts through days chasing motivation, the other builds momentum through consistent movement. Over time, these two paths don't just diverge, they lead to completely different worlds. One is filled with regret, the other with mastery. Force yourself to take action, even if it's messy, especially when it's messy, because that's where clarity begins to form. You won't think your way into confidence, you act your way into it. Each step forward, no matter how small, builds trust within yourself. You begin to prove that your word means something, that you can rely on you. When you wake up tomorrow, before the noise of the world rushes in, make one promise: that today you'll do what needs to be done. You'll stop negotiating with the weaker part of your mind that says later. Later is a trap. Later becomes never. Every second spent waiting for the right time is a second you could have spent becoming stronger, smarter, more capable. There's something deeply powerful about the phrase, I'll do it anyway. Tired, do it anyway. Uninspired, do it anyway. Afraid, do it anyway. You may not realize it, but every time you push through resistance, you reshape your brain's pattern. You rewire yourself for perseverance. You teach your mind that discomfort is not danger, it's growth. Your emotions are temporary waves, your purpose is the ocean. Don't let a fleeting feeling decide the direction of your life. When you feel overwhelmed, remember, you've been here before. You've faced storms and still found your way through. The fact that you're still standing means you are far stronger than you think. The secret to high achievement isn't motivation, it's mastery of state. Learning to show up regardless of mood, teaching yourself that your standards are higher than your feelings. Because feelings fluctuate, but standards are what define your destiny. Every person you admire, every success story you've heard, they all share one invisible habit: relentless follow-through. They finish what they start. They act without waiting for ideal conditions. They understand that the world rewards execution, not intention. So how do you build this unstoppable drive? You start by reducing friction, remove the distractions, the excuses, the endless decision fatigue. Prepare your environment for progress. If you want to read more, put the book on your pillow. If you want to work out, set your shoes by the door. Don't give your weaker self the chance to debate. Second, define your non-negotiables. The habits that must happen no matter what. These small daily wins will compound into unstoppable momentum. Progress doesn't require perfection, only persistence. Third, visualize not just your goal, but the pain of inaction. Feel the weight of what happens if you don't change. Because sometimes the fear of staying the same can be a greater motivator than the hope of success. And finally, forgive yourself quickly. You will fall short. You will have days when you fail to act. But don't let those moments define your story. The only real failure is surrender. Learn, adjust, and return to action. Every comeback strengthens your resilience. You must train your mind to crave discipline the way others crave comfort. To find satisfaction not in ease, but in effort. Because the truth is, the moment you stop needing everything to be easy, you become unstoppable. Taking action is not about rushing, it's about aligning. When your actions align with your higher purpose, every step carries meaning. Even struggle feels sacred because you know it's leading somewhere important. So when the next challenge comes, and it will, breathe deeply and remind yourself, this is part of the process. This pressure is shaping me. I am being refined, not defeated. You are not behind, you are being built. Force yourself to take that first step, then the next. Let your movement build momentum. Let your consistency become your confidence. The world doesn't need another person who plans endlessly. It needs someone who acts with courage and heart. One day, you'll look back at this exact moment, the one where you decided to move, despite the fear, the hesitation, the doubt, and you'll realize this was the turning point. The day you stopped waiting for permission and started writing your own story. Because that's what this journey is really about. Not waiting for motivation, but mastering movement. Not chasing comfort, but cultivating courage. You already have everything you need inside you to start. The only thing left is to act. And once you begin, don't stop. Build momentum like a river that never ceases. Because action, repeated long enough, turns into identity. You won't just do anymore. You'll become the kind of person who always shows up. That's when the shift happens. That's when you no longer need to force yourself to act, because action has become your nature. And from there, nothing can stop you. Keep moving forward, even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard, because that's how greatness is built, one courageous decision at a time.